It's now after the Spanish Grand Prix, and Nyck de Vries has reached the end of the 3-race period Dr. Helmut Marko gave him in order to prove himself at Alpha Tauri. How has he done? Does he deserve to keep the seat? Who should replace him if he does leave? Let's talk about it. Let's start with how Nyck even got the seat in the first place. And that all begins with Sebastian Vettel retiring. Nyck de Vries was selected by Dr. Helmut Marko and Alpha Tauri to fill the 2023 vacant seat at Alpha Tauri after the silly season of 2022 concluded. If you weren't aware of what happened then, let me run it down for you quickly. Once the two-time world champion Sebastian Vettel decided to retire, Fernando Alonso got snapped up by Aston Martin, which left Alpine clutching at straws and eventually announced that their rookie, Oscar Piastri, would step up to replace him. However, Piastri was like, "What? No? Thanks, but I'm going to McLaren." So they looked for replacements and attempted to reunite the Frenchies into one team by lowering Gasly to Alpine. You know Gasly, the guy who drove for Alpha Tauri, then Red Bull, and then Alpha Tauri again after some mediocre performances? That left an open seat alongside Tsunoda, a 2-year veteran of the team. Alpha Tauri wanted someone to be able to push him, with the winner likely to claim the team leader role Gasly abandoned. At this point, they had a few options. Daniel Ricciardo was without a seat. Liam Lawson just came third in F2. Iwasa was there as well, as were about 11,000 other Red Bull rookies smothered across every other single series which has wheels. Colton Herta looked an interesting option, but the wacky points distribution for super license points cut him. That left Nyck. Now Nyck had just driven in Williams to 9th place at the Italian Grand Prix in Monza, replacing an appendicitis-ridden Alex Albon. He was on a high, and he had a lot of support from inside the paddock itself. He's a fellow Dutchman, so Max must have been rooting for him. He used to be a Mercedes junior, so he has good relationships with Toto, Russell, and Hamilton, and all the teams he was loaned out to as a reserve driver for that season. Nyck also has a somewhat impressive CV on the surface, being an F2 champion and a Formula E world champion, and so Alpha Tauri selected him, and here we are today. Now I don't want to say that he's been shocking, because he hasn't. It's very underwhelming. Before the season he was saying he was going to bring maturity to the team, basically digging at his teammate, who was just passionate. Maybe too passionate sometimes?
Push flat out! Shut up!
Well, at least Yuki isn't as passionate as Dan ticked him.
Leave me alone.
Alright, man. Good at that, bring it back.
It could have been happening for 3 laps and I have no fucking idea. Roberto, if you're on the intercom, tell my taxi to be ready in 15 minutes. I'm getting out of here.
Anyway, Nyck also didn't want to be known as a rookie, seeing as he did have a race in the previous year, and he is the 8th oldest driver in the grid. He's 28. Jesus. He won F2 when he was 24. Come on. That's basically just racing its children. This guy was doing a Roy Nissany. So, how has Nyck done this year in terms of results? Well, he's one of only 2 drivers not to score a point, with the other being the only other rookie, the only rookie on the grid. That being Logan Sargent. Now, let's give Logan some time. He's a young rookie at probably the worst team going against a truly world-class teammate in Alex Albon, whereas Nyck de Vries is a 28-year-old non-rookie losing to his immature teammate who has just gone for the back of being slapped up by Gasly for the past 2 seasons. He's only beaten Yuki once, and that's when he had bad brakes in Monaco and was 20 seconds ahead of him before that. Nyck could even be way further behind his teammate if it wasn't for Yuki's 5-second time penalty he received at the Spanish Grand Prix, for an incident very similar to the one that Verstappen did on Sainz on lap 1. However, back 3 races ago, Helmut Marko showed Nyck a yellow card and basically said, "Get your stuff in order." And he gave him 3 races just after the Spanish Grand Prix to pick it up, which got reduced to 2 after severe flooding at Imola, with Marko threatening to replace him with another option if he continues to struggle. Although it is unclear now whether 3 races get extended over Canada now due to the Imola issue. I think Nyck should go. Red Bull have some great options that aren't almost having a midlife crisis, are Red Bull Juniors and deserve a shot. Nyck is taking up the space of a young driver that could potentially match the levels of Gasly, Sainz or even Verstappen. Although the traditional ways of the cutthroat driver program at Red Bull and Alpha Tauri has limited some of the drivers negatively, such as Albon and Gasly, I'm of the opinion that they are better for it and that the experience ahead will help them in the future as they strive for greatness. Meanwhile, De Vries won't reach greatness. He's halfway through his career already, and he's lackluster. Along those lines, Ricciardo shouldn't be a replacement driver either. He's had a good run, won a few races, and made some memorable moments for all of us. But as I said, I'd rather a young Red Bull Junior that has potential to be great, and I think Helmut Marko will think along similar lines. Iwasa is a good, young Japanese guy fighting at the top of a competitive F2 season with plenty of support. However, he is older than my recommendation and has proven himself less. Plus, it is hard to distinguish yourself from the field when half the F2 grid are also Red Bull Juniors. Liam Lawson, here we go, this is the man, the myth, the legend. What more can I say? Look at him, the guy just looks fast. Aside from that, he came P3 in F2 last year, beating teammate Sargent convincingly, even though he had the worst luck in the season I'd ever seen. Countless races where the car just failed on him, like in Saudi Arabia, or someone just drove into the back of him, like in Monza. He won on debut in F2 in Bahrain in 2021, coming 9th in a competitive field that year, then coming 3rd the season after, as mentioned before. In 2021, he also drove in DTM, winning on debut once again against some of the best GT drivers in the world, mostly Germany, and Alex Albon. He would have won the whole goddamn thing too if it weren't for some meddling kids. I'm looking at you, Kevin Mandelander, shunting him on the first corner of the last race, and then some strange shenanigans happening between the Mercedes drivers, which allowed the other guy in the grid, who could have won the whole season, to win the race and the title, and perhaps the most outrageous and contentious race I've ever seen in my life. Anyway, he spent them all season and should have won, and he also taught Alex Albon a lesson. Then in lieu of racing for Alpha Tauri after they chose Nyck, he was shipped out to race in Japan for Honda Mugen in Super Formula for 2023, which must have been some strange ploy to mend ties between Red Bull and Honda ahead of the 2026 engine regs changing, before the Ford and Aston Martin deals came about. He won yet again on debut, beating two-time champion teammate Najori, and currently sits first in the standings after winning the previous race. I don't want anyone to say this isn't impressive. He got limited testing of his cars, is racing at random Japanese tracks, half of them I've never heard of, beating talented guys who have raced at these cars and these circuits all their life, for however many years they've been alive for. He's a great driver with loads of talent, he's an aggressive overtaker and just exciting to watch. He may struggle a little bit with qualifying, but his racecraft is insane, so too is his time management. He is the guy, and if he doesn't get a seat now, he'll get it at the end of the season. I hope Nyck will continue to disappoint us all. Let's save ourselves some time and get the lad in the seat. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like and subscribe if you liked it.